Hello everyone, it's Benny, and today we have an update. So, today I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about what's happening in the immediate future. I'm going to talk about what's going to happen in a little bit of the longer term. And then I'm going to talk about a few things that you might benefit from right here, right now, in the present. So, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the most pressing issue of what's happened and what will be happening in the immediate future. So since last time, I have finished my thesis, I've completed all of my educational work, I am done with college, and I now have a full-time job and I'm working that. So that's where I am right now. As for my channel, I'm in a position now where I could, if I wanted to, just pick up right where I left off, keep pumping out the same content I always did. But I've decided not to do that. In fact, I've decided I'm going to continue my hiatus for another several months. And importantly, here's why. I've been looking back over my content for the past year or so, basically ever since my return, and what I'm looking for is just to review it. What have I actually provided people? How much has that realistically helped anyone? What can people gain from this? And frankly, I'm not too pleased with how it's turned out. I think, in general, it's not terrible. I think it's probably on par with before my return, which is really exactly the issue. It's on par with what I was doing as a teenager, which is not where I want to be. I want to be providing better content because I know I can provide higher quality content. And in my case, I'm defining higher quality not as some abstract marketing buzzword, but to me, the term higher quality means I can give better understanding of concepts that people will actually use and benefit from in their life in less time and effort for them. I don't think, by that metric, my content has improved at all since 2014. And I'm really not happy with that. The other half of that equation is, clearly, it's not going to improve just with more practice, doing more videos and content. Otherwise, I would have seen some improvement over this past year since I've returned. But frankly, I don't think that's happened at all. I don't think the content towards the end of this return period is appreciably better than that at the beginning. So, that's why I'm going to do something different. And in this case, something different means taking myself to the Benny version of teaching school. So, what I've been doing for a while is I've been collecting tons of different materials. Some of them are courses. Some of them are books. Some of them are tutorial series. Some of them are articles. There's a huge variety of different things I've just been keeping a list of, keeping track of, because the one thing they all have in common is they are things I think, if I really master them, will substantially improve the quality of content I'm providing you. And that is the plan for the next few months. I think if this really gets mastered, this will really just take everything on this channel to a whole nother level and make things that much more valuable to everyone. And I've actually already started on some of it. Now sure, a lot of this is non-technical. Things like, what's the best way of presenting this complicated idea so that it's understandable to someone who's unfamiliar with it? Or, how do I make a tutorial that minimizes the amount of time between starting the tutorial and actually getting practical results that they came there for in the first place? Some of it, though, is more technical material. Things designed to improve my own math and coding abilities so that ideally that shows up in the material and I can offer better code and better insights in the tutorials themselves. And some of those might be useful to you right now. So here are a few of the things that I've been looking into recently that I've personally found interesting and insightful. Something I've been reading a lot about recently are abstract convex optimization problems, because it turns out that a very large number of the different common programming problems, especially those related to computer graphics, ultimately go back to some abstract convex optimization problem. And what's particularly interesting is there's a lot of these that can be solved very quickly, but are supersets of all those problems. One particular example of that is the second-order cone programming problem, which contains just a huge number of different problems. It's hard to capture them all. For example, all quadratic programming problems are a subset of second-order cone programming. The mixed linear complementarity problem is a subset of second-order cone programming. Those are both two very general programming fields, and this offers a solution to both of them. And of course, there's even more that are subsets of both of them. I would have to really dig up a list to give it a fair representation. The point, though, is you get an efficient solver for this second-order cone programming problem, and you get the solution to just tons of common issues in your code base essentially for free. And there's minimal performance hit to doing so. So it's a really big coding win if it works out, which is why I'm particularly interested in it. So feel free to look that up if you want to read more about it. Again, this is part of research, so I'm going to do more research before I'm ready to potentially teach anything about this. But that's what I'm reading about. Things like that, and its slightly more abstract variants, semi-definite programming and conic programming, which are a little bit harder to solve, but include more problems. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there, and that's, I think, really when you're pushing the boundary of when this generalized problem technique gets useful, but it's still useful to know what's one step beyond the practical. Relatedly, I'm also reading about more robust and efficient ways of solving actual math problems, because, go figure, a huge number of programming issues really are variants of math problems. And one of the resources I'm reading in better understanding that is the book Numerical Recipes, which is all about scientific computing and how to get the most out of abstract, difficult math problems within the real-world constraints of a computer. So again, I realize these particular technical issues may or may not benefit a lot of you, or any of you, possibly, but I wanted to share. Maybe it's useful to some of you. If it is, great. Feel free to look into it. And in the meantime, I'll be studying this on my own and translating whatever useful bits I can glean from it into material in the future. So that's a small sample of some of the things I'm looking into. There is much more where that came from across a very diverse set of areas, but I'm hoping that the sum of all these different parts will add up into better quality material overall. And while I don't expect miracles to happen over the course of just a few months, I do think it's reasonable that if this is going to ultimately produce some benefit to the channel, then it is going to show up within a few months from now. There will be some measurable difference by then. One thing I think we can address right now, though, is I'm starting to think I might be out of touch with what my viewers are ultimately hoping to get out of my videos. And this is kind of ironic, because while I know what I'm making these videos for and what I'm expecting the viewers to get out of it, well, my intended audience isn't necessarily my actual audience, let's put it that way. So here's a really simple thing you can do that would really help me out with my videos. Just leave a comment answering, what do you hope to achieve from watching my videos? Just simple as that. Even a simple answer will be helpful. When this study period is over, here's what I expect will happen for the channel. Barring me learning something totally revolutionary that tells me everything I'm doing right now is wrong, I do expect I will be continuing the current series with the 3D game programming series, and the Vulkan series, which technically hasn't started yet, but I have the plan for it, and I have the example code set out. So it's ready to go, I just haven't recorded the episodes yet. Beyond that, there's a number of things I've been toying with, and I'm going to share them with you. Not because I expect any of them in particular will eventually turn into video content, but just to share some of the things I'm currently thinking about. My master's degree specialized in machine learning, and I've been toying around with that a lot recently. I don't have any concrete plans to do anything machine learning related on the channel, of course, like I said, but it's something I've been toying with, so maybe something related to that will show up at some point. Who knows? Something I've been toying with. A while ago, I mentioned I was toying with WebGL and considering possibly doing some material related to that. As I've worked with WebGL more and more, though, I've realized there isn't really as significant of a difference as I initially thought. And really, the difference between WebGL and any other version of GL isn't notably more different than the difference between any particular versions of OpenGL. So I don't think it's really warranting any specific dedicated series on it. That doesn't mean I won't use WebGL for something in particular on the channel, though, but I don't know what that is yet. Another thing I've been looking into is I've been studying decision theory, and especially its application to software engineering. So far, this has led me to a number of interesting things which have just generally actually made quite a bit of difference in the way I develop software, and they've really made my life a lot easier so far. At the moment, though, I think this is another one of those things where it's probably not something that would get any dedicated material to, but something that I can passively integrate into making higher quality material overall. But I don't know, I also think there's some inherent value into it as it is, so maybe. It's another thing I'm just toying with. Maybe that'll eventually turn into something somehow. But that's just about everything I have for now. One final note, and this is actually kind of an important note, is Patreon. I am completely scrapping Patreon because it simply does not make sense for what I'm doing. If you want to support my channel, great. I'm sure I can find a reasonable solution to that in the future. Right now, though, Patreon is the wrong way to do it. It doesn't make sense to offer recurring monthly donations to something that doesn't upload every month. Why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense to donate per video when there could be anywhere between 0 and 10 or more videos in a single month. That might break someone's bank if they pledge too much per video. It doesn't make sense. For the time being, the page will still exist, but I'm no longer going to be offering any type of rewards for it. And this has all already been posted on the Patreon page, so anyone who is a patron should already have been notified about this. But that is everything for now. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned, and I will see you all in a few months after my period of training. And hopefully by then, we will have greater videos than ever before. Thank you, and I'll see you then. No cliffhanger. It's time for a new way to end these videos.